Hi guys, it is Kate back for part 2 of my February wrap-up, and in case you didn't see part 1, I will link that down below, but I ended up having my own personal readathon to kind of knock down a lot of the books that I had in my currently reading folder in Goodreads. I ended up having 13 total, and that was just stressing me out, so I decided to have a week where I just read as much as I possibly could, and just books that I was in the middle of, and books that I was like, they were kind of like hovering over me, and I felt like I needed to get them just done. And the first that I read, and is going to be very near and dear to my heart now, and that is Bleak House by Charles Dickens. So this now is my third favorite Dickens. Dombey and Son, Great Expectations tie for first, but Bleak House is now my third favorite. And this has two main kinds of narration. The first is first-person narration with Esther Summerson as your narrator, and then the second, and that's, you know, her telling you all of her thoughts. And then the second is third-person narration telling you about the different kind of events and happenings of the day. And there's a major case called Jarndyce and Jarndyce about a will, and they're not sure who it's supposed to go to, and it's been going on for years and years. Anyhow, two characters in particular that I felt a real connection to were Esther Summerson and Lady Deadlock, and they're two that when I think about them now, I just have such a an emotional reaction. I just really came to really care for them. Two characters though that really almost ruined the book for me at some points were Richard Carstone and Harold Skimpole. They just really were so foolish, and especially Harold Skimpole was just shirking off all of his responsibilities and just so callous about everything that he was supposed to do. So anyhow, you see the lives of these people all, you know, under the influence possibly of this case of Jarndyce and Jarndyce, and you really get to see the evolution of certain characters. And what I also really appreciated, that was the female friendship with Esther Summerson and Ada, who was kind of her ward. They come to Bleak House in the very beginning and stay with their guardian. So I really liked it, and a couple quotes I wanted to read to you. It was delightful weather. The green corn waved so beautifully, the larks sang so joyfully, the hedges were so full of wild flowers, the trees were so thickly out in leaf, the bean fields with a light wind blowing over them filled the air with such a delicious fragrance. Late in the afternoon we came to the market town where we were to alight from the coach, a dull little town with a church spire, and a marketplace, and a market house, and one intensely sunny street, and a pond with an old horse cooling his legs in it, and a very few men sleepily lying and standing about in narrow little bits of shade. After a rustling of the leaves and the waving of the corn all along the road, it looked as still, as hot, as motionless a little town as England could produce. So I am just more and more, when I read, really impressed with when an author has skill describing places and describing settings, and I just think Charles Dickens does that very, very well. So Bleak House, a new favorite. And the next one that I read, and it is most definitely not a new favorite, I'm going to be so sassy about this, it got 2 stars for me, and that is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. Virginia Woolf is just like hailed as like this heroine of feminism and of literature, and she really ticked me off. This was like the most nihilistic book I've ever read, the most cynical book I've ever read, and I did not like it. She just has such a low opinion of humanity and thinks that the point of life is romantic love, while at the same time thinking that humans are really not worth much. She just takes herself way seriously. She's so pretentious. That's my rant. That's all the time I'm giving Virginia Woolf on my channel. Next, moving on, is The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. This is a Victorian mystery, and this involves one of the very first detectives ever. This was one that I started for Victober, and I just had other ones that I was more motivated to read. And to be honest, since it's a gaslight mystery, I kind of thought I wasn't going to like it, because I don't really start enjoying mysteries until they're written like in the 80s. So this was one that I just was skeptical about enjoying, but I said, you know what? Why don't I just try to pick up where I left off and see if I enjoyed it all? So I was 80 pages in, and I ended up really enjoying this. It was so entertaining and engaging. It starts out where there's this necklace, the Moonstone, and this girl on her 16th birthday? I can't remember. Anyhow, she has a significant birthday and she's given the Moonstone. And people are a little apprehensive about the Moonstone being given to her and like being out in the open. So anyhow, then the necklace does go missing very early into the plot, and it's just, you get to find out from several different narratives who the necklace belongs to. And that's what I really did appreciate about this too, is having the different narratives, getting to see the different perspectives. But once again, as with any older mystery, I didn't feel there was all that much depth in enough of the characters, but it was really enjoyable. The plot moved very quickly, and one thing that I've noticed is a common theme in the more Victorian literature that I read, the more I notice it, is how they address the reader, and I just think that's really fun. So there's a quote where it says, here follows the substance of what I said, written out entirely for your benefit. Pay attention to it, or you will be all abroad when we get deeper into the story. Clear your mind of the children or the dinner or the new bonnet or whatnot. Try if you can't forget politics, horses, prices in the city, and grievances at the club. I hope you won't take this freedom on my part amiss. It's only a way I have of appealing to the gentle reader. Lord, I haven't seen you with the greatest authors in your hands, and I don't know how ready your attention is to wander when it's a book that asks for it instead of a person. Another fun thing is the narrator for a good portion of the story loves Robinson Crusoe, so there's a lot of bookish love going on in there. He just talks about how much he loves it, and I just really, I absolutely loved this book. And I won't be rereading it like anytime soon, but in the future, if I'm like, I just want something to get swept away, and I think that would be a great like wintertime read. Okay, then let's see. The next book that I read was Saturday by Ian McEwan. This is my second Ian McEwan to ever read after I fell in love with Atonement, and this couldn't have been more different. What's so interesting to me is reading Mrs. Dalloway. It takes place over the course of a day, and this takes place over the course of a day, and it is a very in-depth knowledge of this one particular character, Henry Perrone. He is a neurosurgeon, and you get to follow him through his day from the very, very beginning of the day till the very, very end and beginning of the next day. And this was a challenging read because it does take place all in one day. There's only 5 chapters to it, and you can tell they're very, very long chapters. And it was very unexpected. It couldn't have been more different from Atonement, but you know, I picked this back up because it was on my currently reading. I had started this in the fall, and I was not sure how I was feeling about it, but I'm really happy I gave it a second chance. It's just a really intimate portrait of this character, Henry Perrone, but also his relationship with his wife, Rosalind, and you get to see a really beautiful, intimate portrait of a marriage and how, you know, this couple, just how they love one another. It also does have kind of a culmination of events towards the end that I didn't see coming at all. And so that was definitely, that kept me flipping the pages at the end. And overall, yeah, it was enjoyable. It was just a very unusual read. It was very different from anything that I read, and that's not a bad thing. So the quote that I wanted to read was one I appreciated, specifically being someone who takes care of the house. That's like my job. I am a stay-at-home mom, and he's thinking back about his mother and her life, and he says, she was a woman who gave her life to housework, to the kind of daily routines of polishing, dusting, vacuuming, and tidying that were once common, and these days are only undertaken by patients with obsessive-compulsive disorders. Every day while Henry was at school, she spring-cleaned her house. She drew her deepest satisfaction from a tray of well-roasted beef, the sheen on a nest of tables, a pile of iron candy-striped sheets folded in smooth slabs, a larder of neat provisions, or from one more knitted matinee jacket for one more baby in the remoter reaches of the family. The invisible sides, the obverse, the underneath, and the insides of everything were clean. The oven and its racks were scrubbed after every use. Order and cleanliness were the outward expression of an unspoken ideal of love. A book he was reading would be back on the hallway shelf upstairs as soon as he put it aside. The morning paper could be in the dustbin by lunchtime. The empty milk bottles she put out for collection were as clean as her cutlery. To every item its drawer or shelf or hook, including her various aprons and her yellow rubber gloves held by a clothes peg hanging near the egg-shaped egg timer. Later, when he made his dutiful attempts on Daisy's undergraduate course in the 19th century novel, he recognized all his mother's themes. There was nothing small-minded about her interests. Jane Austen and George Eliot had shared them too. Lillian Perrone wasn't stupid or trivial. Her life wasn't unfortunate, and he had no business as a young man being condescending towards her. But it's too late for apologies now. Unlike in Daisy's novels, moments of precise reckoning are rare in real life. Questions of misinterpretation are not often resolved. nor do they remain pressingly unresolved. They simply fade. People don't remember clearly, or they die. Or the questions die and new ones take their place. So I just really appreciated that passage because I think there is a undervaluing to emotional labor, and just having an orderly and well-kept household is something that people only notice if it's not there. And it's just something that's highly underrated. And so I think that's really a neat passage, just to show the merits of really taking care of and nurturing a home, and how that really is such a positive environment for the people in that household to be a part of. So yes, very different and unexpected, but enjoyable. And I gave this 4 stars. The next book that I read that was so-so was The Bachelor by Stella Gibbons. I started this as a buddy read with Ange from Beyond the Pages in the month of December, and then we both put it down partway into it because we weren't hating it, but we weren't loving it. And so I had about 160 pages left of this. So here's my spiel about this. The Bachelor has lots of funny things that happen, which I like with modern classics. It has some witty dialogue, which I like with modern classics. It has some beautiful passages, which I like with modern classics. But if I don't have any emotional engagement to the characters in a modern classic, it bores me to tears. I felt like this with The Town in Bloom by Dodie Smith. Because I just didn't connect with any of the characters. I Captured the Castle, I connected with characters, and I loved it. Nightingale Wood by Stella Gibbons, I connected with the characters, and I loved it. Cold Comfort Farm, I did not, and I hated it. So if I don't have that emotional engagement, then modern classics just really bore me. So the ones that do are like way up there, and they're some of my favorite books, but this kind of missed the mark, unfortunately. The next one that I'm super enthusiastic about, gave it 5 stars, like didn't even have to think about it at the end, and that is Madam Will You Talk by Mary Stewart. So the week that I started this in December ended up being a super crummy week for everyone in our family, and so it was a really bad time to start it. I got through 60 pages of it, and I had around 200 pages left and just put it down for a while, and that crummy week was kind of in the back of my mind and making me not want to read this. But I said, you know what, I'll pick it up now, and I'm so glad I did. This is tied with 9 Coaches Waiting, everyone. If you remember me talking about 9 Coaches Waiting, I think it was in the summer that I read it. And Mary Stewart writes like gothic atmospheric sort of tales, and what I'm getting, I just made a big order of Book Depository. I'm so excited of a bunch more Mary Stewart before these editions are all snapped up. These are not in print anymore, and Hoddard Publishing is coming out with new editions of them that are really beautiful, but they're just not the same as these. They look like vintage travel posters. They are really pretty. Anyhow, all today I was looking at it. It seems like it's a common theme in Mary Stewart's books where there is a woman traveling on her own and then something kind of crazy happens. And so to me, it is a formula, but I've said before, like Rosamund Pilcher's kind of a formula, but I love the formula, so I like it. And it's neat because from what I've seen, they're traveling in very different locations in the different books. And so in this one, she's in Provence, and there is a mom who's there with her son, and she says that they are on the run from the son's father, and the son's father is like very unstable and violent, and his son is just utterly terrified of him, and like, will she please like not tell anyone where they are? And it was really, really interesting. It was edge of your seat reading. I absolutely loved it. I just could not read it fast enough. It was so enthralling. And she also does have just such a way with words. There were so many beautiful passages, and as I just said about Bleak House, I find I really enjoy really skilled descriptions of place. So the quote that I wanted to read to you from this says, "But presently, round a curve in the city wall, the old bridge of the Song came into view, its 4 remaining arches soaring out across the green water to break off, as it were, in mid-leap, suspended halfway across the Rhone. Down into the deep jade water glimmered the drowned gold reflection of the chapel of St. Nicholas, which guards the second arch. Here, held by a spit of sand, the water is still, rich with the glowing colors of stone and shadow and dipping boughs, but beyond the sandbank the slender bridge thrusts out across a tearing torrent. Standing there, you remember suddenly that this is one of the great rivers of Europe. Without sound or foam, smooth and incredibly rapid, it sucks its enormous way south to the Mediterranean, here green as serpentine, there eddying to the aquamarine, but everywhere hard in color as a stone. I highly recommend Mary Stuart. This one is tied with me for 9 Coaches Waiting. I really enjoyed it. I'm so excited about her as an author and to read so many more of her books. The next one that I read is Ruth by Elizabeth Gaskell. Oh my goodness, I'm still feeling all the feels after this one. It was excellent as always, of course. It's Elizabeth Gaskell. She is my girl. I love her, and yeah, this was just so good. I don't really know how much to say about this one. It's just, there's the main character of Ruth. I don't really want to give away any spoilers, but I'll just say that it was excellent, and I really came to love the character of Ruth, and I really like to see the growth and change and evolution of her as a character. I think that's something that's essential for a character to be human. And the quote that I want to read to you from that is, it says, "The future lay wrapped in a golden mist, which she did not care to penetrate. But if he, her son, was out of sight and gone, the golden mist became dark, heavy gloom through which no hope could come." And then another quote, I can't not do two from an Elizabeth Gaskell, says, "Just above the horizon, too, the mist became a silvery gray cloud hanging on the edge of the world. Presently it turned shimmering white, and then in an instant it flushed into rose, and the mountain tops sprang into heaven and bathed in the presence of the shadow of God. With a bound, the sun of a molten fiery red came above the horizon, and immediately thousands of little birds sang out for joy, and a soft chorus of mysterious glad murmurs came forth from the earth. The low whispering wind left its hiding place among the clefts and hollows of the hills, and wandered among the rustling herbs and trees, waking the flower buds to the life of another day." I really, really enjoyed this, so I highly recommend Ruth by Elizabeth Gaskell. And now, sadly, I only have one unread novel by Elizabeth Gaskell to read, and that is Mary Barton. All right, I'm going to try to wrap this up because this is getting lengthy. The penultimate book that I finished in the month of February was Heart's Blood by Juliette Marillier. Juliette Marillier is really talked up on BookTube, so I wanted to try her out, and also in my resolution to read a fairy tale, read at least one fairy tale retelling in each month, I wanted to follow that up. So I read Heart's Blood, which is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I'll say this got 3 stars for me. I enjoyed it. I wasn't blown away by it, though. I was kind of surprised to see how many high ratings it had. I thought the writing was just normal. I didn't think it was lousy, but I didn't think it was awe-inspiring. I thought the character development was just normal. I also think, for some reason, I can't quite put my finger on it, it just felt a little contrived. It felt a little bit like it was trying too hard, whereas Ella Enchanted and The Goose Girl, to me, those are like the creme de la creme of fairy tale retellings, and they, to me, just feel really organic and natural, and just, I can't explain it. So something about it just was messing with me, but I definitely did enjoy it. I'm glad I tried out Juliette Marillier. I'm not sure how motivated I feel to try out more of her stuff after that. And then the last book that I read, finished last night, was The Beautiful Mystery by Louise Penny. This was the next in the Inspector Armand Gamache series, and this was very different. This is the Three Pines series, but this takes place at a monastery, which was very unexpected. So one problem with it taking place at a monastery is that there was, it was hard to distinguish all of the different characters because they were all like father so-and-so, brother so-and-so, and I had a hard time keeping the different characters straight. But on a different note, the main characters and their storyline and their evolution in this, I'm just blown away every time by how she can interweave the happenings of a murder investigation with the evolution of these characters. I really love that. So more crap went down in this book. Yeah, so Armand Gamache, Jean-Guy Beauvoir, you see them a lot in it, and yeah, just lots of progression. So left on a cliffhanger with some things, and I definitely can't wait to get to the next one. All right, that was my very rapid wrap-up of so many books in February. I'm so excited for the month of March and to see what reading that brings in that month. I will talk to you guys soon for another video, and I hope you had a lovely reading month in February.